Hello, 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 and welcome to the KTI Group South Africa YouTube channel. Do like and subscribe. Today we are showcasing the AI, Artificial Intelligence Basics webinar. Do enjoy. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Just pop in the chat and tell us where you are joining us from. NetSuite. Oh, I've never heard of that one. Welcome all the way from Josie. Welcome. Johannesburg is represented. Who else is here? Joburg South is represented. Who else is here? Pretoria, Tshwane, the capital city, is represented. Pretoria, it seems Pretoria is winning. Midrand, somewhere in between. Can we see if we have somebody outside Gauteng? Do we have somebody outside Gauteng in the house? Pretoria represented. Welcome, Pretoria. Wow. Pretoria is representing. It's representing. So welcome everyone to the AI webinar. I'm going to honor the time and start. The other delegates will catch up with us. We've got quite a huge ground to cover, so we will be moving right along. So I'm just going to close my chat and let me then introduce to you Tshepang, who will be our moderator before I move on with the slides. Tshepang, do you want to go on video and just say hi to everybody?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tshepang Tsokhane, and I'll be your moderator for this webinar. And I hope you guys enjoy, and I know it's going to be insightful. Enjoy.
Okay, thank you, Tshepang. So Tshepang will be taking care of you on the chat as I will be busy. She will be my co-pilot today, and I will be focusing on the slides. So let us get into it. So welcome to your AI journey. This is only the first step of an adventure that we are going to embark on. The course we are doing today is just to give you a brief background and foundational knowledge of what AI is about and some of the terminologies that are thrown out there. And I think what is important as well is this is meant to be a webinar for an ordinary guy on the street. So I need you to help me with something. If you feel that maybe I'm going a little bit technical, I need you to send this emoji. Let me try and just show you that emoji. Okay, let's see. Tshepang, I'm going to ask you to help me to do the aeroplane emoji, which means this thing is going over my head. Okay. So Tshepang, can you just demonstrate on your side the emoji?
Okay, no problem. Can you see it?
There you go. So if I see somebody with that aeroplane, which means this is going over my head, I know that, oh, there goes the IT lady becoming technical. Then I will just revise, because the intention is for you to leave this webinar equipped and understanding artificial intelligence. So are we sorted? We're going to use those emojis, right? So let us then move further along. So ground rules: be present, be fully engaged, Put your cell phone, your devices on Do Not Disturb. This is an investment of your time, so make the most of it. Ask questions. We've got a Q&A. Tshepang will also be assisting us in that regard. We've got different sections, and when I get to the end of a section, I will then go to the Q&A and check what questions we have. So keep posting away. And then obviously we're going to be respectful, we're going to participate and stay curious, and this is a safe space. There is no question that is stupid. The only stupid question is the one you keep within yourself and you do not ask. That is the only stupid question. So, and please stay muted throughout the webinar. If you need to ask a question, you just put your hand up, then you can unmute and then mute, just so that we do not disturb. But I think it's important that this is interactive. Use those emojis. The aeroplane is only reserved for when things are getting technical, right? So even though some of the terminology is technical because it's by design, I will still try to simplify it as far as possible. Then I think just to warm us up, it's winter, let us just warm ourselves up. Let's do a quick Q&A and just see. And you can put in the chat your responses to the quiz and to just see, you know, as I say, it's just for fun. Nobody's making an exam, so don't feel bad if you don't get certain things right. So let us start. Does AI think like the human brain? What is your take? No, you have to coach it. Okay, I'm going to take okay, somebody says no, more than human brain. Tembeka says more than human brain. Later on, we're going to have that conversation to say, is it smarter actually? So we're going to get to that conversation. But I can already see some hesitation. It does not necessarily. Let's see what the answer is saying. Let me not give it away. No. Okay, so well done to those who said it uses math and patterns. And later on, you will see also how it tries to mimic a human brain, but it does not think like a human brain. It tries to, but the human brain is just the best invention ever. Is it always right? Let's see what's happening in the chat. Is AI always? Nope, definitely not. Definitely not. We know hallucinations, and I think the way it's so convincing how it presents the information it actually seems right. Like it looks like it's quite legitimate, but more often than not, it depends on the data. We'll get to that, okay? And then, yeah, then we talked about, will it replace every job? Are we safe? Are we safe with our jobs? What do we think? Are we safe? No, are we not safe? We will find out if we are safe or not. I'm going to suspend you a little bit. It changes certain parts, not entire professions, and we'll dig into this when we look at the applications, right? So we will come back to this one. Then let's look at what we are going to cover today. So we're going to just go down a little bit of memory lane to say, where did this thing actually start, right? We look at some of the concepts, types of AI, applications, risk and challenges, and governance. So we have 2 hours to cover all of this. So you are going to get the slides. So let me already just give you that comfort, because we've got your email addresses. You are going to receive an email after the webinar. We will give you the deck. So you are going to have this. So don't stress about, you know, just going on taking notes. All of this is going to be shared. And because we're going to share this with you, I'm going to skim over some of the slides just in the interest of time. But so what I will be doing is I will be talking to the slides, not reading the slides, because you are going to have the slides, but I will sort of pinpoint the most important elements. And the slides you will see very simplistic, so it's very easy for you, even as I'm talking, to just quickly scan through them yourself. But in the interest of time, I will not necessarily go through every point, but I will emphasize the key aspects. Okay. And most importantly, that item 5 and 6 is also where I want to spend a bit of time. So I will be buying time so that I can do justice to that section. So why does AI matter, right? It is said that now 88 organizations now are using AI, right? And 4 in 5 university students use generative AI. And some of the concerns that, you know, that's part of the registration, some people said, but in academia, how do we even manage? Because students are using AI for assignments, you know, so that is a reality that we are living with now. And then if we look at the market value of AI projected or forecasted for 2026, it's sitting at 2.5 trillion in US dollars. So this is big money. And I'm also going to keep coming back to this issue of big money, because there are also other elements that are creeping in because it's just too much money. The minute you have too much money to be made in a particular area, then that's where you start seeing maybe certain things that are not so ethical starting to creep in. We will also talk to that. So AI is no longer a future technology. It's shaping how we live and work. So maybe just a question. And don't Google, just answer. As I say, we're just learning together, so don't feel bad. But how old do you think AI is? How old do you think it is? Let's just get some numbers. Just type a number. Guess. Just guess. I'm watching the chat. How old do we think it is? 4 years old. Charlene. Okay, let's see other numbers. 10 years. Tshepang, 10 years. Let's see. 33. Let's see. Florence. Florence, did you Google? Your answer is too perfect. You're supposed to at least be off by a year. Hey? Hey, Florence, did you Google?
Yes, I must be honest.
Florence, that is too perfect. The answer is too perfect. And indeed, it is 70 years old. And we're going to go down memory lane now. I think most of us, when we think AI, we think generative AI, which came into being end of 2022, so which is about 4 years or so. But even the technology was built a little bit earlier than that. So yeah. So it's older than all of us here. I can safely say. I'm not sure if there's somebody 70 or older, but I think we can safely say it's older than all of us, right? So let's move right along. Here's a bit of history. So I'm not gonna go into each and every detail here. So as I'm going through this, as I say, some of this, I'm going to skim over it. You can read. That's a history lesson. So in 1950 already, this is before AI was even coined, Alan Turing started asking the question, can machine think? Remember the earlier question, does AI work like a human brain? And out of that, then came lots and lots of other developments, right? And then he proposed an imitation game where it was about checking if a computer can actually do things that humans can do. And then that moved along. And then this is the actual birth of AI, 1956. And that is where there was a conference or workshop, and that's where this term was coined. But what effectively happened here was it was more of a coining of a concept, but the actual technology was not there yet, right? But this was sort of the foundation was laid here. And then it then just went on and on and on. And so in the 60s, then that's where we had symbolic AI, which is effectively, if this, then in my previous life, I used to be a developer, and this is one of the basic things we had when we write code. So this is effectively was really just code, and it was just aspirational, but effectively it was not really AI per se, but it was trying to mimic, it was laying the foundation for it. And that's where also within that time there was a first chatbot, which is Eliza. I don't know why the chatbots, most of them, even the conversational AI, they always have female names. Any ideas? Maybe put in the chat. Why do you think they have female names? Is it because females have more words? I'm just wondering. So then there was the first AI winter. So winter within this context is about a challenge. So when we say first winter, second winter is like winter now, it's challenging, it's cold. And this is also because, as I said, the technology was not that developed, but there were promises. And I can tell you that we're still having more promise than delivery even up to today. Somebody's saying it's because they're developed by men. That's why they called they are always say female names. Yeah. So that was the first winter. So this part is history. I'm going to very quickly go through it. You can read. It's very interesting. Then we had expert systems. We'll talk to this again in terms of expert system and where we are now when we talk to narrow AI. We will come to that. Just for now, look at expert systems, which is systems that are built for a specific purpose, and that's all that they can do. Later, we're going to talk to the different types, and we're going to come back to narrow AI, which is a sort of an expert system on steroids, effectively. Then we had the second winter, which was in the 80s, and again, it was because it was too costly. It still is. It still is. Then we started now breaking ground. And this is when now we had the IBM Deep Blue beating a chess champion. This is now where the machine could actually beat a champion in terms of the chess moves. And then again, then we started having machine learning revolution in the 2000s. So it goes. And so it goes. And we saw now IBM Watson, which is a different system, also winning Jeopardy. So they actually use these machines to challenge champions in different games, because those are type of game/sports that are considered to be quite complex, particularly intellectually and mentally. So they use that to look at how can a computer, beat a human. Because again, the aspiration, behind the aspiration of AI is to mimic the human brain. Okay? Then came deep learning, and we are also going to go through the layers of AI, which is still the same as machine learning, but far more advanced. So it's like everything is just building on top of each other. Going back to symbolic AI, where technically it's really just software. Then you start building layers and layers on top of it to a point where it just becomes so advanced, and you have what is envisaged to be super intelligence, which we'll talk to a little bit later. Then again here, this 2016, so 10 years, so this is not so long ago, where Google's DeepMind beat the champion on Go. It's also a game like chess and one of those. Again, the machine beat the champion. So there we're starting to see more and more advancements. And now 2017, that is where now what we loosely call AI came into being. This is where the transformer came in. GPT, the T is transformer, right? This is the architecture or the building block. So when you say architecture, is the same as architecture of a house. So a computer also has an architecture. The same as when you have a house, there's an architecture that says this is the foundation, this is the window, this is the wall, this is the roof, This is where the electricity cabling computers also work the same. They have an architecture. They've got different layers, 7 layers as a matter of fact. So that is where the architecture for what we are now using mainly from a generative AI was established. And then generative AI goes mainstream in the 2020s. And as I say, ChatGPT is really what put generative AI on the map, because that was the first one, and there's all sorts of them now, in the market. But this is where now everybody started using AI and it became accessible. Because prior to this period, artificial intelligence was just something at the back for IT folk. It was not accessible. It was not even affordable to be used by a regular man or woman on the street. And this is where things changed. Then this is the timeline. I won't go here. Then we are going to move. So now let's look at some concepts, some basic concepts. And let's look at what is AI, right? So the big thing here is AI is a system that can perform tasks normally associated with human intelligence. And hence I said at the end of it, it's about computers trying to mimic us. And they do this through automation, which means there's repetitive tasks that they execute, or prediction, they use data and they focused, or they generate. And so the generate part is the exciting yet risky, because that's also where you get your hallucinations, right? Even the predictions, it predicts based on historic data. It might be correct, it might not be correct. So that's the story. So let's look at how does it learn, right? So AI learns by examples. And I think what's also important, I'll also come to this, is when you go on to ChatGPT, or because I'm going to talk a lot about generative AI because that's the one that most people use, that people can connect with. So when you go on ChatGPT and say, tell me, I'm just thinking of a simple example. Create a business profile for me. I actually asked Gemini to do that for me. I gave it a website and said, do a business profile. So when you do that, it does not go to the internet per se, unless if you give it a specific link. Like I gave it a link, so it had to go there. But it also has a data set. And you must always think of a data set, which is the input. A data set, I always say, think of it as like the sea. It's just a lot of data, okay? So every time you ask it to do something, it goes in there to get information. It does not go scouring the whole internet. But that data set, that sea, is made up of, amongst other things, information from the internet and then other things that are fed to it. And also, when you keep asking and querying, it also adds on to that. So it always goes there to search. So if I say, I gave it a prompt and said, go to Kwesamsa, make me a business profile. Because I gave it a specific website, it's still gonna go there. But in terms of building a business profile, it's gonna go to the sea to get information to tell it what a business profile needs to look like. So it will always go there, right? But over time, it keeps updating itself. So that data set keeps changing and maturing, and then it keeps, getting better and better. So that's why if you look at the level of hallucination now has dropped significantly. In 2023, I mean, it was incredible the things that it would do. When you say create a picture of a woman, you'll find that the top part is a person, the bottom part could even be a lizard. That's how bad it was. But now the accuracy level has improved quite significantly. So it uses these examples, find patterns, adjusts, and then improves as it goes along. So that's effectively how it learns. And then it also learns through either supervised learning, unsupervised, or reinforced. So supervised is, again, as I said, you just give it, if you want it to give you a cat, it has to have thousands, not hundreds, thousands of pictures of cats for it to be able to know that this is a cat, it's not a dog. Then when I say give me a cat that is red, maybe, then it has to go to another model where there are colors, because I said the cat must be red. There's also thousands and thousands of other things that are red. Then it knows, oh, by the way, red is this color, this is a cat, then it'll bring the two things together. So that's sort of supervised learning. Then unsupervised is where it uses the data. It goes to that C, and then it sort of figures things out. And the other one is reinforced, where it's more trial and error. It learns and then it just keeps getting better. So that's effectively how it learns. But ultimately, data, and I'm going to talk to that, data is the engine of this thing. And if you don't have good data, you are going to have challenges. And what's also important as well, when I talk about the C, and we'll later also unpack a little bit the bias. The C, that C of data, is made up of primarily, majority of it is information that is on the internet. That is what fits the C. So if you look at the internet now, you don't have to go to normal AI. It's just that when you search now, it automatically gives you an AI response. If you go on the internet now and say, give me a photo of a corporate meeting, you are 99.9%, the photos is going to give you, the images will be a middle-aged Caucasian male. That is what is in the internet, which means if I now need to do a deck and I say I need a corporate something, that is what it's going to give me. So what you then need to do is, when it gives you that, you need to say, no, give me a diverse male, female, a different, ethnic backgrounds. Then over time, it learns that, oh, okay, I can still, because now that photo, that image that is going to create is part of the C. So next time when somebody says, give me a corporate image, it not only has the traditional type of images, it will now have a mix. And then that is also going to start to. So the issue around bias, people always complain about bias, but we are also contributing to that bias because we don't push back. So you need to, when it gives you that, to say, no, rather give me this, rather give me, then it learns, because every time you push back, that's how the model gets better. And then over time, you will find that it's more representative, because that bias is quite serious. In certain instances, there are even legal cases associated with some of the biases. Okay. And then we talked about supervised learning, which is where, and this is the most common one, where you just feed it with lots and lots, and then you train it based on that. And then unsupervised, it learns from the data, reinforce trial and error until it gets it right. Okay. So in terms of decisions, so how does it, so we looked at how it learns, right? So how does it make decisions? It follows the normal process, input, processing, output. That's what it is. And remember, we talked about AI and the predictions. So this probability, that's where it's doing its predictions to say this will typically look like this. If I said I need an image of a woman wearing a red dress, is going to get those images of lots and lots of women with red dresses. It processes that and will come to this process part around the different models that it uses. And then it will say, okay, what is the probable thing that Portia wants to see? And that's where it also then does other processing. Then it gives me the output. Then I see a woman in a red dress. So this step 2 and step 3, that's actually where the real work, that's where the engine is happening, where it's making decisions and it's processing. And so we will then come to just the different ways that it does this processing. So training data, I've already spoken to this, that it gets a data set, and the data set comes from all sorts of places. As I said, it comes from the web, it comes from all sorts of images and all of that, and then it feeds the model and the model gets updated. So that's the input part, right, in terms of how it makes decisions. And then we come to the processing part. So there are different ways that it does this. First is the algorithm. And I know the term algorithm is very common in today's language because most of us interact with algorithms on our social media, on streaming services. The algorithm tells you, recommends, and all of that. So an algorithm is really just basic logic of any system. So when we go back to the basics of coding and programming, what you write is an algorithm, right? So it's just a logical step to say, if this happens, do that, repeat that, etc. If that happens, go there. And there's all sorts of decisions that happen. So it's more the logic of a particular system. So an algorithm can be very easy or can be quite complex. You can have an algorithm that has 2 levels. You can have algorithm that goes to thousands of levels in terms of complexity. And the more complex, the better the output, but also the more challenging it is to maintain, because then you need a lot of people who will be looking after different parts of that particular algorithm. So one of the things that it does is searching, ranking, clustering. So again, it's taking the data and doing things to it based on a set of rules. So here, that's why they say instructions. So it's instructions. And that is also, again, more the supervised type of learning, because you are telling it what to do. All right. So most of it, so some of, what is called AI is actually not AI. And I go back to that issue around money. And where there's money, there's trouble, right? So today, everybody puts that label on almost any technology product to say, this is AI powered, this is etc. Not all products that are called AI are actually AI. Some of them are just good old fashioned software applications. It just follows instructions and that's it. It does not have any form of intelligence. It does not have any form of agency. It does not do anything itself. Everything is written as code. So that's also one of the things that you just need to be careful on, because people will say things and say, this is AI powered, but there's actually no AI. It's actually just a normal software application. There's a programmer wrote the code and that's it. But if you don't say it's AI powered, nobody wants to buy it. And that's why people do it. Then machine learning, we talked to machine learning earlier on, where the machine actually learns on its own. So like a traditional software, that's where I said a programmer writes rules for every situation. So in my old life, that's what I used to do. Okay, that's what I used to do. But with machine learning, the computer finds its own rules by studying examples. So it looks at these data and then it just draws correlations, etc. And then it starts, and over time it gets better, because the more it creates these rules, it refines these rules. So it's just in this continuous state of learning, which then makes it better and better, right? And you'll see a lot of this with your spam filters, product recommendations like your Netflix. To tell you, Portia, there's such and such a thing, we think you will like it, and then I will watch it. I just gave a certain streaming platform a free advert, but okay, we won't go there now. And this is, again, machine learning, the most commonly used. As I said, is mainly your product recommendations and so forth, like social media. It's that kind of a setup as well. Then you've got a neural network, right? This one is where it's trying to mimic the brain. Remember our icebreaker, where we say it's trying to mimic the brain. So this particular one is trying to operate the same as a brain, and is also learning, right? So it's just a layer of connected neurons. So when I talked about an algorithm most of the time works with what we call decision tree. So decision tree is decision, as you know, is a decision. A tree is a tree. You have a branch has, sub branches and so forth. That's a decision tree, to say, if red go left, then I go left. When I get there, say, If hot, go right, I go right. So you see, it's multiple decisions that you are navigating. So this one goes further because it takes now those decision trees and it also joins them together as well. So it's highly complex. And it is at this point that I want to say there is no technology, and there will, okay, that's my personal opinion. And there will never be a technology that will be better than a human body. That is the most advanced machine there ever was and ever will be. Let me tell you why. A human body, as I'm talking to you now, there's processing that's allowing me to see. There's processing that's allowed just for me to speak. There's something happening to the throat. I have to breathe. Something is happening to the lungs. The brain is doing something else. My hands are moving. So there's like thousands of algorithms that are running just for me to stand before you and give this webinar. AI does not necessarily work like that, but that is the aspiration. And that's where these neural networks are going because they want to join things together. So we move away from this narrow AI, where AI does the one thing. Where we are today, AI does the one thing. That's all it does, right? But a human body does hundreds and thousands of things at the same time. We are not there yet, but we will also come to that conversation. So I'm going to try and play this. Technology must behave because I want to also just make a point around. So this is the neural network, which is inspired by the brain.
The CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer.
This movie came out. When was that? Any takers? When did this come out? This is not the first one. This I think is the second one. But the original Terminator came in 1984. The original Terminator. And I remember at some stage I was saying to someone, I said, you know what? Especially after I now went into the IT field. I said, you know what? That Terminator movie is actually true. That thing is going to happen. And you know that the person said to me, you watch too much TV. They said you watch too much TV. There we go. This happened. Yes, I robot. You know what? Absolutely. So this happened that time. Now I'm sitting here. I'm talking about neural networks, and this is what was in the movie at that particular time. So yeah, that's where we are, folks. This is not science fiction. And what I will say, iRobot or any sci-fi movie, I can tell you now, there is no sci-fi movie that I know of that is not true or will not be true. Maybe there are, I will not claim to have seen all of them, but those that I have seen, it's gonna happen. Either it's already happening or it's coming for us. So sci-fi is not as fictitious as we actually made to believe. There we go. I just wanted to give you proof that this used to be sci-fi. Here I've got a slide that's talking about a neural network.
The CPU.
There we go. And then deep learning is where now you go deeper. So when you take that neural network that you spoke about, now you go another layer of complexity, right? So it's becoming even more advanced. So as you see from a point where I was talking about an algorithm to where I am now on deep learning, you can see that it's just advancement upon advancement upon advancement to a point where this is just going to be so spectacular. But I always say it will never be the same as a human body. That one, I can put, I'm not a gambler, but I can put my money on that one. So that is then deep learning. And then natural language processing, this is where we teach computers. So these are different types of how remember we had input, processing, output, even though it had a different step, but it's processing, output. So the deep learning, machine learning, there are different ways that it does that processing. So natural language processing is also another category. And this is where it sort of aligns with human language. And that's why it's used for chatbots and so forth and so forth. And there's actually great work being done in this field in our country by leading researchers. I mean, even young people. Some of the work that's coming from, for example, University of Limpopo, the NLP they are doing for Sepedi, they're doing amazing things. So there's lots and lots of good work coming from within our country. And I do encourage you to if you just Google Natural Language Processing University of Limpopo, for example, you're going to get amazing results as well. So this is about more conversational type of processing. And then computer vision, and then this one, I mean, like now we even have smart glasses, we have facial recognition, like when most of us, we use our face to unlock our phone, that's computer vision. That's just an example. So there's also another way that we're doing that. And I also just want to also indicate that the generative AI works a lot with graphics, as opposed to, if I can call flat data, which is just text. It works a lot with graphics as well. So computer vision is then part of that. And then this is really just a summary of the difference. I'm going to talk more to those that I have in bold. So if you look at speed of processing, AI, we can never match it in terms of speed, but it's not flexible, because remember, AI is based on rules. Bottom line is there's some rules somewhere. So those who are like me and they love movies, they will know the Matrix. And Neo in the Matrix, no, Morpheus in the Matrix says what do they call them? Agents. Morpheus says the agents can never be as powerful as the people who are outside the Matrix, because their world is based on rules. So that is the absolute truth. So we might be slower, but we are flexible, you know? So what they have is speed. And the other thing that is important to note is AI cannot feel. So there are people who are in romantic relationships with AI, right? Like serious romantic relationships, and they get so emotionally attached and they think, wow, this AI really loves me, you know, it tells you all sorts of things, you look beautiful. That thing is just code. It feels nothing. It's just a machine. It's zeros and ones. It feels nothing. But people get, it's bad. It's bad. And that is something that we have as humans. That is our core strength, you know, to really, really feel. We don't only feel love, we feel anger, we feel all sorts of things. Computer feels nothing. It might appear that it does, but actually it feels nothing. So we always need to remember that there's no feeling there. It's just the words, but it knows how to put the words that mimic a feeling that it can do. Okay, so that is AI then in a nutshell in terms of how it compares to us. As I said, I'm talking to slides. Some of these things you can read at your own time. Then in terms of the basic concepts and what we covered is it learns from data, right? It now learns from data compared to back in the day when people like me needed to write the code for everything, right? And that data affects its quality, right? And then you also have neural networks that we talked about from Terminator that also are inspired by the brain. They try to mimic the brain, but it's also quite limited. And then the last point where it says it predicts based on probability. So that's statistical analysis, not understanding. So it does not understand. So when it gives you that perfect answer, don't think it knows that this answer is perfect. It's just a probability. So yeah, I think this is what would probably make sense to say or to put as a response. but it does not have the conviction. Whereas with us, if I say 1 + 1 and you say 2, you said with conviction that I know it's 2. No, AI doesn't know whether it's true or not. That's why it can say it's 3 and it hallucinates. It can't tell the difference between what is real and what it's hallucinating. It's the same thing for it. So that is AI. So I'm bringing these things because it's important that we understand what we are actually dealing with so that we don't give it too much credit. And I know it's spectacular, the things that it does, but it does not even know that those things are spectacular. Just think, this is more or less what I think Portia would like, and it gives me that. And I'm thinking, wow, but it doesn't know better. So let's talk to the types of AI. Then I'm going to visit the Q&A to see if there are any questions before we move to the risks. So we talked about some of the processing that it does when we're doing the input, processing, output. So these are just some of the different ones, and I've also mapped this against some of the tools. So these are tools, what's this? Disclosure, I don't have any shares in any technology company. So when I talk about a particular tool, I'm not selling it. I have no association with any of these guys. I just use them like everybody else. So generative AI is what most of us use on a day-to-day, right? And emphasis on generative AI is generative. It generates stuff. So and you know what? It also cannot say it does not know. So if I ask it something it does not know, it's not going to say, Portia, I don't know. It's going to give me something. Because remember, it's a probability thing. So it's going to take the data, and based on the question and the data, it's going to give me the best possible outcome. That is the model. That's how it works. So it's not designed for it to say, no, this answer, I don't know. No, it will still go to the data and try to marry the two together and give you the best possible outcome, which could then be a hallucination, right? And so that's the thing with generative. And then we talked about machine learning, and then those are some of the products, their tools, natural language processing. We talked about that. Computer vision, conversational, your Siri and Alexa. And then we also have robotics and automation. So I also want to mention on the robotics and automation that this is where things can be very gray between traditional software and AI. Because before AI exploded 2023 or so, so let's put it this way. In the technology field, we have flavors of the month kind of setup, where we have this thing which is big buzzword and it's a hype and everybody's going with this thing. So before AI was a hype, the big hype, we had RPA, robotic process automation. What robotic process automation does, again, goes back to instruction. You've got steps. You say, do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a step to do something. The only difference is it does it very fast. And, oh, there you go. You see, So let me try and lower my hand. I hope it will go off by itself. Let me see. Because I put up my hand, then it's gesture thingy. It recognizes the gesture that I'm trying to ask a question. So what then happens is when you used to have a process, if you can think in a company where you have a process in in finance, you have a process, then after finance, it goes to HR, then HR goes to marketing. Most of the time, the traditional way that IT applications are built is that finance will have its own system, HR will have its own, marketing will have its own. So which means finance will do their part, then they must maybe give a report or something to HR and so forth. What robotic process automation did is it automated the whole thing, where you did not need to have those handover points. It automated them. So, which means what it brought was speed more than anything, but still at the back of it is still the good old-fashioned rules, right? So there is an element of AI then from a robotics and automation where the AI can also start enhancing the logic and the algorithm. So sometimes, and this is where people will oversell things and say this is AI, but it's pure automation. So this is a field where it gets very, very dicey and very gray, separating the normal robotic process automation from actual AI. So you will find I'll keep coming to this because, yeah, I can tell you now, people sell AI. Some of it I can already see that this is not AI, but yeah, we live to fight another day. So these are just some of the types of AI and the tools. And then in terms of, remember we talked about a data set, right? That we've got input, and that input is data that's coming into AI to process. So in terms of how it processes, it uses different models. The large language model is the one that is used the most, right? Because this is the one that is used for chatbots and so forth. So it's got different ways that it processes that data. So you've got the data set, that CEO of data, and then there's this model, right? And then that's how it gives them the output. But remember, in terms of how these models work, it still has those attributes around. It could be machine learning, it could be just an algorithm, deep learning, etc. So those aspects will fall within the actual model. So there are different types of models, and so you've got large language models, which understands human language. You have diffusion models, which is mainly for images. And then you've got adversarial networks. And this one is where it actually creates the likes of deepfakes. And yeah, deepfakes are real. Deepfakes are real. Even the AI itself, if it uses, if you find some of these things, it's like you can't even tell the difference, because my voice can be easily picked up from somewhere, my likeness, and then that's it. And this also then fuels misinformation. And then you've got neural networks, you've got convolutional and recurrent. So these ones, the first one, which is the convolutional, is about visual patterns in images. So it picks up those things. And then also, if you look at the application there, for example, medical images. So this is the AI. When you come to different sectors, you'll see in the medical field, this is where that comes in. And the recurrent one is where you're doing the translation. Then you've got the multimodal, which is a combination of models. But what's also important here, and I know this one is where the terms are, let's say, very technical. But what is important for you to understand on this slide is AI uses different models for different things. Because when you give it a prompt, you are not going to say, let's say chatbot, most of the prompts that you give it will have multiple of this, right? You might find that depending on what you're asking, maybe let's say, I will say, I'm trying to think of a good prompt that I will give it that will have to bounce off. You can say, maybe give me a sample of work outfits for a week. I'm just thinking now. I'm being a lady and I'm thinking, I don't know what to wear. Let me ask AI what I must wear. So you will see that there's an element of it where it's going to go to, it will have to bounce around. Like the diffusion models, there's imaging that it needs to do there. So there's those kind of things that it will need to do. So it needs to tap into the different models. But what you will not see is when you give it a prompt that has to use these multiple models, it's seamless to you. Because all you do is you give it a prompt and then it's processing. You don't know what it's doing. But this is where sometimes it has to move from one model to the other, because it says, it starts maybe with a large language model, and then it says, but for this one, I need the adversarial one. Then it goes there to do a little bit of work. Then it goes to a diffusion model to do another thing. Then at the end, you get an output, but you are not going to know that it was jumping around the different models because of depending on the prompt that you are using. So these are just some models that it's the different tools that it's using in the background. But again, as I say, these tools, underneath them, you've got different, you still have those different methods of processing your machine learning, your neural networks and so forth. And each of them has different level of sophistication. And each product, when we're talking about the tools on the previous slide, each product also has different levels of sophistication. So that's why some tools will be better than others, because they use different models, and in terms of the type of processing that they do, that also differs. But what is important for you as a user is to just understand that it uses different models and there are different ways that it processes. So if you are looking for something that's highly specialized, then you will be able to know that actually the type of processing that I'm going to need for what for this particular task maybe is an adversarial one. Then when you start looking at tools, then you need to look at tools with that capability at an advanced stage instead of just the basic, because most of these that we use on a day-to-day from a generative AI is very basic, and you will see some of it is quite basic, but others can be quite advanced. Then we've got 3 levels of capability, and I've talked to this. Narrow AI is what we have today. And when we talked about expert systems that came in much earlier, as we were sort of building this capability, that's where I said AI today is expert system on steroids, because an expert system only does one thing, and it's an expert in that thing. That's hence they call it expert. It means you are an expert in a field. So if it's finance, for example, it's an expert in finance. It can do finance very, very well. That's what it's there for, right? And currently, if you look at the tools, that's what they do. They are very good at one thing, right? So it's important that you understand that these tools, they do one thing. You go to generative AI, its job is to generate text and images. That's what it does, right? So I can't ask it to make me coffee. I need a robot for that one. It's a different. Then the robot, I also can't ask it certain things. You see? So they do just the one thing. But as I said, as for example, I can do, as I say, even now I'm doing thousands of things. My body's doing thousands of things, some of which I don't even know that it's doing. This is narrow AI. So, easy way of looking at this. Narrow AI is where we are today. General AI is where we're trying to go. Super AI is where we wish we can go, but we are, as I say, I'm not a gambler, but if I were to gamble, I'll say it's not going to happen. But yeah, I won't be around to know whether or not I'm right, because it's something that I don't think it's possible. Now, let's look a bit at narrow AI. As I said, it's very narrow. It focuses on one thing. So it outperforms humans on a specific task because it specializes in the one thing, right? It specializes, like an accountant. Let's go back to finance. It will do accounting better than an accountant, but it doesn't have soft skills. Maybe that accountant is also nice, talks to people nicely, and it doesn't do that. It just counts beans, and that's it. So always think of it from that perspective. And I think what also becomes important, because this is where also this job issue comes in. We need to then say, if I'm an accountant, what else am I bringing to the table apart from counting beans? Because now the AI can count the beans. So what is my value proposition? What else can I do over and above? We need to start thinking differently about our jobs. Because one of the things, the conversation that I'm not seeing enough of is I do not see HR colleagues. I don't know, do you have an HR person in the room? I do not see HR people having conversations around restructuring jobs, not shedding jobs, Oh, Charlene. Yes, maybe I'm going to put you on the spot, Charlene. Why are people not saying, let us restructure jobs because of the advantage we can take from AI, instead of just saying, I need less people and let's lay them off, because it means the company can do more. So, Charlene, do you want to tell us if those conversations are happening? I don't see them happening anyway. Am I wrong? You can unmute. Oh, we are actually doing that right now. Oh, I love that. I love that. Kudos. Yeah, so people are catching on. So that is where we need to start thinking differently. And the same applies to universities. The universities say, but students are cheating. But then we need to say, are we even teaching the right things? Are we teaching the right way? Are we chasing the right outcomes? Now AI is here. So how should students be learning? Instead of saying, don't cheat. I mean, if I can go and put that assignment in an AI and it does it for me, I mean, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying, why would a student not want to do that? Especially at that age. We know we all did a lot of irresponsible things when we were young. So if we look at now how this applies in everyday life, we have voice assistants. I talked about the series, Alexas and so forth, recommendations, facial recognition, email filters. Some of these you don't even see, hey, but they are just happening there. Web searches, your navigation. I must say the navigation one, I have trust issues with them. Navigation systems. They've directed me to dead ends many times, but anyway, that's a story for another day. So this is just how we use that on a day-to-day, narrow AI. General intelligence, this is where now we find that the AI does multiple. We talked about narrow, it does the one thing, now it starts doing multiple. This is the aspiration at the moment, to go beyond just the single use case and start doing other things. So I think we can achieve this. It's going to take us a while, but I think it's something that is possible, because at the end, you do have an AI that does this task A, this one does task B, this one does. So to bring them together should not be a problem. Yes, it will take time and stuff, but I think that is something that's highly probable. So I think this will happen, and I know there's a lot of academic research already going into this. So this, I think, is closer than we think. This one, this one I'm a skeptic, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Because this is a point where AI will surpass our intelligence in every field. That's why I'm saying those of us on the call, I'm not sure if we live to see this one. But I might be wrong. I'm not sure if any of us here, maybe 2-3 generations, I don't know, but human intelligence is, I don't believe even as humans that we even understand what we are capable of. I don't think we even have an appreciation of the machine that is our bodies. Mass robots are going to take over. That's iRobot right there. That's iRobot right there. So I mean, the brain is just too complex. The brain is just too complex. So, but yeah, we shall see. So that's the super intelligence. And a lot of sci-fi movies now, they're going more into this. There's this one. What is that movie now? I mean, there's Lucy, but the one I'm thinking of is there's Johnny Depp there, who becomes, it's almost like Lucy, but it's slightly different. I just forgot now what that movie is. If you remember the Johnny Depp movie, put in the chat for others, and that would be nice sci-fi movie for you, where his wife puts his intelligence in this thing, and weird things happen. But that's sort of the super intelligence. If you know the movie Lucy, that's sort of, in theory, the super intelligence. But yeah, in real life, I think it's too complex to have that, but nothing is impossible. So these are the layers that I've been talking to. Again, if you look at artificial intelligence, that's very general. So very simple AI, then machine learning. And the more you go down a level, the more advanced it becomes. And then you get to a level of agentic AI. And agentic AI is now, this one acts with autonomy, is like it does things. Okay, again, this is where there's overpromise, under delivery. So I must just tell you with Transcendence, yes, that's the movie, Then you have to watch that movie. After this talk, this is the movie you need to watch, and then you'll see everything that I was saying coming alive in that movie. So this is one area where the agentic AI technology is so AI as a discipline is evolving. So let me just put that qualifier. Most of us, we claim to be experts, but I can tell you we are all learning. I'm learning, everybody's learning. I'm in the field of governance. Governance, we are even way behind because trying to regulate this thing. So agentic AI in theory is fantastic. You get an agent, it does things for you, but it's not as advanced as people believe. So because I told you again, money talks. Because there's so much money in this whole AI situation, there are companies that actually have real people, developers doing work as if they are agents. So if I say to an agent, order me something on Uber Eats, and then the guy who's the stuff is, and I'm thinking, wow, this agent. But what is actually happening? Is that Charlene is there in the background ordering Uber Eats for me? It's not AI. So there's that. There's a lot of that happening, but obviously nobody's gonna own up. But we know in the technology field, we know that it's not all it's cracked up to be. There's lots and lots of developers in the background that's doing some of the work. But you know what? In IT, we know. Yes, we know. But I still believe that we are going to get to a stage where it's going to improve because it's early days. So I think it's one of those that was oversold. Remember the second winter where we said something was too expensive, and even the first winter of AI where they said the expectations were not met. I believe agentic AI is at the first, second winter level issues. We are having that now. And so that's why there's that augmentation. As I say, there's big money here, and other people will get it in a not so honest way. So these are the layers. And then, so this is just a summary of what we have covered. And I'm going to go through quickly because I've addressed some of this. I want to get to the risk and governance and still allow enough time for questions. And so healthcare and medicine, and I think where you see statistics like 94% accuracy, Dr. Bernard, remember, these are aggregated numbers. So it doesn't mean if you go and use AI, you're gonna get reduced doc. If you're owning Intercare and you then deploy AI, it doesn't mean you're going to have 85% reduction in burnout. It means it depends which AI you are using, what your capacity is, and the whole context around your company it determines what your benefit is going to be. Right. So one of the projects I'm working on now is looking at the real value that AI brings to organizations, and I'm very interested to see what my findings are going to be, but I think they are going to be underwhelming. But as a researcher, you're supposed to be neutral. So I'm neutral for now. Okay. And then finance and banking, absolutely great with credit scoring, fraud detection. But I want to talk about credit scoring. And we'll talk to this under governance as well. Ultimately, the accountability sits with the person. So an AI cannot be held legally accountable. So if I have a company, I own a bank, Portia Bank, and I use AI for credit scoring or I use AI for whatever, if something goes wrong, they're not going to blame. I'm accountable. So there's been issues where, remember we talked about bias earlier, where due to bias, AI would decline credit to certain demographics, to extend, that's why I said there's been legal cases, to extend that some financial institutions were sued for that because they realized that certain demographic just gets declined, but it's because of the AI. Because remember, the AI goes to that sea in that data. It tells them that people who qualify for credit fit a certain profile. Maybe they have degrees, they are a certain race, maybe they're a certain gender, they're a certain age. So if you are 25, even if you are a Caucasian man, but you're 25, it just declines. Says, you see, because that is what the C is saying. So there's all sorts of implications that one also just need to take into account when it comes to that. Then supply chain and manufacturing is one of those areas as well. Here you see a lot of robots, robotics. There's a lot of robots, but also remember, not all robots are AI powered. Some robots have just code. It's like rules to say do this and that's it. That's all it does. There's no AI. It does not retrain. It does not learn. It just follows. It's just the basic software. So just something to take into account that when you see a robot, don't assume there's AI there. Not always. Sometimes, especially the older ones, they don't have AI. Okay, education and learning. I think I talked about how we need to start looking differently to education, but there are also other opportunities for us to even do better in how we teach, right? Because it is here, customer service, we've got chatbots. Then I need to say also, not all chatbots are AI powered, but everybody says that. Some is rules, it's traditional, it's RPA, robotic process automation. It's rules that are just coded into the thing, and that's it. It does not learn, it does not do anything. As a matter of fact, most of the chatbots that I interact with through some companies that I'm a client of, I need help here and there. Like I went to this company that provides certain services. I wanted something on the website on my profile, I couldn't find it. I went to the chatbot because I'm thinking maybe I don't know how to navigate. And it couldn't even help. It just kept giving me funny links. I could see that this is not proper AI. This is just a bot with programming, So not all of them are AI powered as well. So yeah, so these are just applications in the customer service, transport. So autonomous vehicles are something that's actually it's like this very hot topic because we know with Tesla in the US, somebody died when they were also trialing that. The problem we can have self-driving. Self-driving just means I can, for a time, I'm there, but the car is driving itself, which means I can also just intervene. Let's go to iRobot. Will Smith didn't like the self-driving one to drive because he just didn't trust the machines. Autonomous means this thing does its own thing. And so if you look at the real life application of the technology, the algorithm is too complex. It's just because it means the technology needs to work in every scenario. And if you can just think of driving, is it possible to think of every scenario? And then you come to South Africa, and how does the AI deal with taxi drivers, our special taxi drivers? How is it even going to deal with it? Because it's going to assume that there are rules on the road and all cars follow those rules. But we know there are suggestions, they're not the rules. So how is it going to navigate that? So it's one of those where the concept is good, but the reality, I would rather say, let's stick to self-driving where you can still just, override the technology and help it, not give it autonomy, going to be trouble. So that's that. And then creative industries. I think this is one of those industries that are so hard hit by AI. I mean, we see now there's AI artists, and I think in a different setup, I want to do a webinar on worship music and AI. There's AI worship music. Do you sing along or what do you do? because you know that there's no Holy Spirit there. You know, there's another topic for another day. But these are the realities. And then you have these AI artists topping the charts. And what about, you know, normal artists like real humans? That is where we find ourselves. But these are again just applications. So this again is just a summary of some of those applications in terms of everyday use, your ChatGPTs, content, Midjourney, Science. Those are some of the tools. Again, I have I don't have shares there. You're going to get the slides. You are welcome to play around with those tools if you like. He's not as clever though. Yeah, but I must say I use a lot of Copilot. But yes, I need to remember trial and error is a trial and error. I need to keep helping it along. But there's a thing with AI, you need to know what you are doing. Otherwise, you're just going to get hallucinations. So these are the domains, and this I put here specifically because based on the registrations around academic research. So I think I've covered most of those. And even with tenders, you can do bid screening, your public service. I mean, even now, actually, I just read an article this morning where SARS is using it to target tax evaders and all of that. So it's really can be used across all sectors. So this is really daily life. I think we've talked to this, so I'm going to skip over that. And where are we going now? So we are now in the 5IR, and I know people are still using conversation, the language of 4IR. 4IR is last season, we're no longer there, right? Because 4IR is about automation. So I made reference to robotic process automation. That's 4IR stuff. Right now, we are in an era of collaboration with the machine, with the technology. That's where we are. So, for example, now I've got this watch that tells me I must sleep, I must stand, I must walk, that's a partnership. And there's other applications. We've got wearables, we've got all sorts of things. Some people even have certain technology in their physical bodies, other inside the body, not for me, it's a wearable, I can take it off. So there's a lot of those that in terms of where we are now. So we are applying then the human judgment, which AI does not have, but we partner it with the scale of AI, and that's the fifth industrial revolution, which is where we are. Where we are going next is the symbiosis, and this is where now man and machine becomes one. Okay, that's where we become Lucy's, Lucy's of this world. So it's going to be, let's just say it's going to be interesting. There's already, what is this Neuralink, Elon Musk, where they put things in your brain and that stuff. I can tell you, I'm not that adventurous, so I'm okay with my brain not being here. But there's the symbiosis we're talking about now. There's 6IR stuff. But now that you've been on this course, when people say 4IR, tell them, guys, please, that is last season. We are now in 5IR. So please do correct them. We are now in 5IR and we are working towards 6. Then, so as I say, AI augments human work, but does not replace it, at least not now. But with the general intelligence that we are going to, we could find the replacement, because then AI will be able to do more than one thing. Then it could potentially replace us. And the future is collaboration, not AI alone. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to skip over this. I'm just mindful of the time. I was going to do a different quiz because, I'm just managing the time. If that's okay, I'm going to do Q&A at the end because I want to come to the risk and challenges. Then I will then do the thing at the end because this is a very important section. So please just bear with me. If you have questions and you are dying, maybe let me take a peek and see if I can't maybe handle one. Also, where's my Q&A? Where's my Q&A? There we go. Oh no, I don't have questions. Great, great. Okay, so now now we're coming to risk and challenges. Now, welcome to the wild, wild west. I've already planted the seed as we're coming along with some of the challenges. So Anthropic is one of those. It's like OpenAI, ChatGPT is one of those big companies. And they've recently tried to launch this Mythos. They actually had to withhold it. So they put it in a sandbox. So sandbox is, think of it as a virtual prison. So sandbox is where we isolate code so that it's not linked to the network, nothing. It's just isolated, and normally do that for testing purposes. So when you test something, you create a sandbox environment, and then you can break it and do all sorts of things. It don't affect the rest of your environment. So they put it in a sandbox. So they put it in prison, technically speaking, and told it to escape. And guess what? Michael Scofield escaped. So this Mythos is Michael Scofield. I love movies, and so my examples always go there. Prison Break, here we go, and it did. This is just one. Wild, Wild West. We now have AI hiring humans. Rent a Human is a site. It's a real site where humans go, AI hires them. I do have, however, I must say, I have my own theory, and I say it's real human hiring other humans mimicking themselves as AI, but then again, maybe I'm too much of a skeptic. But yeah. Yeah. So there we go. So I've actually went on their website, this Rent a Human. You can go just for interest sake. But the more I looked at it, I said, now some guy is just jumping on the AI bandwagon. He knows people will just enjoy, say, I went for an AI. Because sometimes we're gullible like that. I don't think it's really AI hiring us. I really don't believe that. But in theory, that's AI hiring people. Then the AI, they have their own social network. And as you can see, this is, what's this, Meta, Facebook. They now they've just bought a social network for AI agents. So they also hang there and enjoy themselves. Why must we have fun on Facebook and WhatsApp and TikTok by ourselves? They also want to have their fun. Then China released the very first autonomous AI agent. So this, they are saying, it's going to the area of super intelligence to a degree because it has autonomy. So in terms of whether it really is, as I say, there's more hype than reality. That remains to be seen. And also what safeguard rails are going to be put around that, because you can't just let this thing loose. You can't just, as I say, it doesn't know anything. As a human being, even if you are a hitman, you know the lines that cannot be crossed. It doesn't know any of that. So that's just some. Then this is another one where the same Anthropic, it threatened to even murder an angel when it was told. So that's self-preservation. Remember iRobot, it's like now iRobot keeps coming back to my memory, where they said the robot has the 3 rules to protect the people, whatever. But it did not necessarily have a rule to protect itself. But then the rules started changing where they started self-preserving. There we go. It's happening today. So there's lots of these horror stories. These are just some. These are happening in real life. And now here's an interesting one where they recognized each other and they switched beyond human language. So they was communicating in, I don't know, whatever language, zeros and ones, whatever language that they speak. Interesting times, interesting times. So this is just the wild, wild west of AI that we find ourselves in. And as I say, the technology is really not as advanced as we want to believe. So we need to be careful when we deal with AI. So the main risk here, bias, I talked about bias and misinformation. Because remember, we talked about deep fakes, misinformation, and you know, the way it will create this content, it looks so legit, it looks so convincing, and it's absolute false, you know. So we need to be careful, particularly students who do this thing for assignments and then it just hallucinates the whole assignment. Impact, we talked about jobs. Privacy, it collects data, and I'm going to take you through this because that's why I wanted to really go through this section where you will see how you can at least just your setup on your tool so that you, I'm going to say reduce, you want, let's put it this way, privacy is a myth. Privacy is a scam. Ladies and gentlemen, privacy is a scam. It does not exist. The sooner we make peace with that, the better for all of us. We just make peace. All we can do is reduce our exposure, but we cannot completely do away with that. And then we've got impact environment. You see now, this is the one that really scares me, the environmental one. If I can give you an example, in the past, if you want to just get a photo or whatever, the traditional software would use maybe 10 or so. Now AI would use, it's order of 10 order of magnitude. So whatever processing power you need now, or we used to, you need at least 10 times that. We have moved from CPU to GPU. So when we talk AI, you see GPU, it's graphics processing unit, because I told you it uses graphics. You can even think yourself, if you send me a WhatsApp message and you say, hello, it's like 1 KB. It's like nothing. If you send me a photo, how big is that photo? With this 4K and whatnot, at least 1 meg, not a K. So that's the thing that I'm talking about. Security, we now also have AI propagated cyber attacks, where this bot just goes. It just casts the net wide and see what it will catch. So when you see some of our government departments getting hacked, it's not necessarily that somebody said, I'm going to hack a national treasure. No, they just cast the net because it's AI just going through the entire internet and see what will catch. So that's also something that's very helpful for hackers, because previously they would have to go and say, National Treasury, do try to break in and so forth. Now they don't have to do it. They write a script, AI just runs with that thing. And IP ownership, what's also important is if you use AI to develop something, remember that sometimes in that big sea of data, remember it went on the internet, and this has gotten better, I must say. There's also protect IP that belongs to other people. For example, a book. Okay, let's use a typical one, a topical one. There's a book called The Polygamist. Let's say it's in the sea. And then I say to, I write me a story about somebody who's a polygamist. He's gonna write me a book, but then 80% of the content comes from there. Then after that, I take that book, I publish it, and I'm expecting to get money. And then Madam Sunati starts suing me to say, no, you've copied my content. So who really owns that? You see? So be careful around what you put there, because you could also be using other people's IP, but also equally, it could be your IP that you are putting there, and then the whole world will have access to it. So be careful. And then there's also health issues, because also now there's addiction, because like TikTok, the algorithm will just keep giving you what you want to see, and then the next thing you spend 5 hours on TikTok. That's not good for your health. So there's all sorts of ramifications there. So it's important that we use it responsibly. Okay. And then, yeah, so I won't go through this. I think I've covered these topics already in that summary slide. And then maybe one of the things to take note of is the black box, and this comes to explainable AI. So wait, no, let me go back. Yeah, there we go. So you've got, as I said, you've got input and output, and in the middle is that processing. So one of the challenges that has been experienced also with AI is you will put them out, and think of it in a corporate setup where You put something in, you get a certain output, but you don't know, how did AI even do this thing? Right? And that's where you now have also now another element of AI that we call explainable AI. And you see, it says explainable, it explains. So it addresses this misnomer in the middle to say, how did I get to that? So when you are in a corporate situation, you need to know how AI reaches that conclusion. Because we also have, we'll talk to this now on governance, human in the loop. You need to know where you need to build in your control aspects within that chain, because otherwise you are giving it full autonomy, and that's where you're going to find yourself getting sued and you don't know how that happened. Like now it will just decline somebody's loan, you don't know how we declined it. So that's where explainable AI becomes quite critical. It's also a growing field, which is fantastic, because then there'll be more accountability and, most importantly, transparency as well in how we use AI. So these are just the key takeaways, and I'm going to jump to governance and regulation. So governance, like government, is how are we policing this thing? And that's, as I say, that's a field that I'm in, to say, how do we try to make sense of this? How do we make sure that we are using it responsibly and for the benefit of everyone concerned? And so, as I say, this is important because it affects all of us. You can imagine if you have a faulty product or a faulty information, recommendations. I mean, you can move from a life-threatening situation to litigation or even, reputational risk. So from a South African perspective, we don't have law that addresses this. We had a policy that was withdrawn. And as a matter of fact, our next webinar, we will be talking about AI regulation. And the reason it was set up for July, because it was aligned with the deadlines for submission for the AI policy. So I needed to have that conversation, and then the outputs would fit into that process, but we'll still go ahead with it all the same. I do encourage you to register for that AI regulation. It's not a technical course. It's about how we think this AI should be regulated. So the expectation is for people to bring all sorts of concerns and look at what would be the typical solution. Because at the end, it affects all of us. Whether you are an AI guru or you are a guy selling tomatoes at the street corner, it affects you. So it's about having a space and making a contribution, because those contributions are definitely going to be put in when they publish the revised version. So I'm waiting in anticipation for that. So on the other side of the world, the EU has an AI Act, which is now sort of a de facto standard for now, in the meantime, that everybody looks into. And it's quite a comprehensive document. It covers a lot of aspects. What is interesting though for this one is it sets the penalties a lot higher, because they have GDPR, which is the POPIA equivalent, which governs privacy, and they charge for that one. The penalty is to maximum 3% penalty of your global turnover if you violate. And we've seen the likes of Google, Apple, they get slapped with penalties all the time for privacy violations. But with AI, it's 7%. So the message is very clear that they're not gonna play in that space. So that's the EU Act. And they've got different categories where they've got what is their risk categories is your unacceptable, high, limited, and minimal risk. So this one where they say is unacceptable, that's where you're gonna get the 7% of your global. Can you imagine if you are Microsoft or you are Google, your global revenue, how much is that? And then they say 7%, because you did social scoring, manipulation, and misinformation, and all of that. So these are just the different categories. The high risk is hiring tools. Charlene, HR, this is where AI is used. It's also important to disclose, right? You need to say, I'm using AI for this and this and that. And also you need to then have a mechanism to say, if AI makes a mistake and recommends the wrong candidate, then what do we do? So that's that. And then limited risk is transparency, just the disclosure. For example, chatbots must say, I'm an AI. But you know what is actually interesting? I always laugh at this, where AI is telling us to prove that we are human. I say, who's the boss? Who's the boss here? When you go into websites and prove you're human, it's a AI telling you, prove that you are human. It's like, yeah, the world. And then minimal risk is mainly low, what is regarded as low risk, because they also look at impact on the broader society, because if something affects one user in an isolated, it's not such a big deal. But if you're going to have things in your company that affects millions of people, then it will hit your pocket. So this is just the general landscape of progress that's been made. What I did not include here is Africa, but other African countries are also moving quite well as well in terms of starting to regulate AI. But again, I want to mention this is an evolving science. We are yet to figure this out, so it's trial and error. So I always say to people, you have to start somewhere. And I always say, when you start with a policy, but that is only step one. We cannot manage AI the same way we manage other things, like you have a leave policy. This one is a type of governance where you must just make peace that you might be changing that thing every 6 months or so, because more and more things come to the fore and you have to respond to that. And then important principles I've talked to the transparency, fairness, accountability. Ultimately, you are accountable, safety, making sure they're secure, privacy, we talked to that, right? And human oversight. So that's where we need to have, at critical points, you need to have a human to intervene, maybe approve something before it goes to the next step. That is very important, that human in the loop. Very few companies actually have this implemented. So most of it is that black box. You have an input, you have an output, you don't know what's happening in the middle, and where there's no human in the loop, because that black box, that's where the human in the loop is supposed to go in, and that has to be by design. You don't implement and then after try to insert the human. No, it has to be by design. It has to be built like that. Then it will work properly, right? So this is just some of the ideas. If you are in a corporate and you want to set up a policy, let me tell you the good news. If you want to set up a corporate AI policy, tell AI to do it for you. And then you just tweak it. You don't even have to break your head. You just say, then it will tell you that these are the things that need to go in. Then you customize it to your environment. Life is easy now, ladies and gentlemen. Life is easy now. AI, let it do. We do the thinking, it does the mundane work. We can no longer, now we don't need to do the mundane work. We do the thinking, let it do the mundane work. So say, do a policy, it must address the following, and then you can tell it about your sector, mining, whatever. It's going to give you something that already 80% of it will be correct. Then you just polish it here and there you go. That's something that will take you less than an hour. You don't have to be sitting. I have a governance background, just doing a policy would take such a long time, because everything is coming from your head and you must go to Google and read all sorts of documents. No, now you just know what you want. You get a skeleton and then you just say, do this and this, incorporate this and this. AI does all of that for you. But you need to know what it's supposed to do, and you need to verify everything that it gives you. I just need to put that there. Then your role, as I say, verify outputs, ask questions, and never ever put confidential information in there. And also report when there's bias. Remember, I said these models need to keep being trained all the time. So when you pick up something, just know it's part of your duty to train it. Then it gets better over time. And if you're in a corporate environment, share with the relevant stakeholders. So this is just some of the things that I've also put screenshots just for you to take note of around protecting yourself when you are online. So golden rule, if it's confidential, don't put it in a prompt. Please don't be tempted. Don't put that in a prompt. So if, for example, I'm going to say a pay slip, let's create a job. Let's say I'm a project manager. I'm getting paid 10,000 rands. I'm a project manager. So I'm sitting in my corner and I'm thinking, I'm underpaid for this job. So I want to find out how much are project managers getting paid out there. Then I'm in my prompt. I'm not gonna take my payslip and put it in there because you can attach documents. I'm not gonna attach. So don't take the payslip, attach it, and say, is this a fair pay? No, because then guess what? Guess where your document is going? To the CE. Then everybody can see it. What you will say is 10,000 a fair salary for a project manager? You see, you're not putting in anything. Then AI will tell you, you're actually overpaid or you're underpaid, whatever the outcome is going to be. So always be in that habit of not putting your confidential data. So I'm going to take you through a few examples on most of these platforms with screenshots to just show you. But what you will see is on all of them, you'll see the trend. When you go to your account where you've got your profile, there will be something that will either say privacy or it will say data controls or something to that effect or training data. And then there is going to ask you improve model for everyone. They normally phrase it like that. Turn it off. What it means, train model, it means it's going to the sea. What you are putting is going to the sea. So even though you are not putting confidential information, just avoid your data going out there completely. Right? And I want to show you something to draw your attention to the screenshot here. You'll see where I've got shared links. You'll see there I was playing with ChatGPT. I don't even know what I was doing. I even forgot. A link is when I do something and then I share it to myself. So I didn't share to any other person. But what I want you to look at is what I underlined. He said, it does not delete it from history. You see what I mean? That payslip of my 10,000. Do you see what's happening? That even if I delete it, it's there. So remember the controversial situation where one of our very popular general said to people, even if you delete WhatsApp, we can find it. The same applies because this thing saves to the server in real time. When you delete the WhatsApp message, it deletes on your device, but it's still on the server. They can get it. So the same with AI. Don't say I'll go back and delete it. It's in the Wild Wild West. So these are just some of the things. As I say, you're going to get these slides, so you can then have a look if you're using any of these. And the enterprise versions of these tools are always the better. They've got better controls and so forth, so you get better protection. But if you're using, especially free, if you're using free tools, just know you are the product. Either you pay or you are the product. Okay? And then this is the Copilot, and then you can see that you can have a temporary chat that goes there, which means whatever you say, if I put in it's 10,000 a fair salary for it's gonna just delete it. It's not gonna save it, but I'm still gonna say it's somewhere there in the background. It's never really gone. Okay, so this is what the prompts on Copilot, Anthropic. So these are just the different ones. I'm gonna just go through. With the Google one, you have to go to admin console. So yeah, so I don't have a screenshot for this one because this was the most painful one for me to do because I had to go to different places to disable it. So I didn't even know which screenshot to put. It was a bit of a mess, but you have to do it on an admin level, which means enterprise level. If you are not on enterprise, you can't switch it off. But fortunately, I have enterprise, so that's off. This is Perplexity. This is usually used in the academic setup. Same story. So if you look at all of them, they'll say data, this and that. So you'll have this, and then you can just help yourself. You'll see improve model, just like that. All of them, same story. DeepSeek, you see improve model. They're all asking the same thing. So this is just a subjective review of which of these are stronger from a privacy perspective and which are weaker. So as I say, it's a subjective review. Just go through all the settings and just be as strict as possible. Obviously, when you do that, you are going to lose a bit on the fun because when you restrict things, certain functionality might be limited, but rather be safe. Okay. And then in terms of if you're in an organization, these are the 5 steps. Make sure that people are educated, like what we're doing now. Make sure that you've got an IT department, they continuously have an awareness campaign, the same as cybersecurity. There's always awareness campaigns. Now we need to have one. And one of the biggest challenges in the corporate setup is shadow AI. Shadow means it's illegal use, the ones that people just use without authorization. Right? Assess where value can be added. It's important that AI is there to add value. It's not there to entertain us. It's there it has to bring money in because it's not cheap. And then obviously have policies and all of that. Pilot in small experiments, like sandbox, but let's hope it's not going to escape prison. And then once you've perfected it in a small setup, then you can stay and grow it from there. And then I want to talk about data. I did talk about the fact that everything is data. Remember that C is data. So the better the quality of the C, the better the quality of the output. Garbage in, garbage out. That's what you need to know. So if you are dealing with a topic that you know that the data integrity or data quality is relatively poor, then you know the outcome is going to be poor. If you work for an organization where you know your data quality is low, then you know you are most likely going to have the same issue where the output is not going to be so great. So if you want to use AI in your organization, start by cleaning up your data. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess. Start by cleaning up your data. So all these elements around data quality, we talked about previously, reduction of bias. Look at your data. Is there indication of bias in it? Do you have security? Are you transparent? Disclosure and accountability is important as well, as I've said. And then, we talked about the EU Act. I didn't go a lot in it because it doesn't really apply to us, but yeah, and it's a huge document, but it's such a good benchmark. And I hope our government are also going to tap into that, because the previous policy that was withdrawn, I did not see them taking advantage of the work that's already carried out in the EU. So I think that is going to also assist the group that's currently working with the minister to really put a very, very good product together. And everybody has a role to play in responsible AI use. It talked about employees, but all of us, because as I say, all of us are using AI in one way or another, knowingly or unknowingly. So that is the story. So in closing, this is what we covered today. We went down memory lane around where this technology comes from. We looked at the different types of models and technologies and methods that AI uses. We looked at narrow AI, which is where we are now. We looked at applications across sectors. We looked at some of the risks. We looked also at governance and how we can govern that. And it's important that we keep learning, we keep, being part of the conversation. And I hope that through this 2 hours, you have had an opportunity to at least get some level of comfort around AI. I don't know if I made you scared or if I got you intrigued and you want to play more with it. I hope I did the latter. I hope you get yourself involved and you play with these tools. And when you get this deck, you will see a number of tools. Try on the free versions, but as I say, look at those privacy settings to say you don't want to train models and all of it, and play around with it. You don't need technical background to use these tools. They are not designed for technical people. So be part of the movement. Otherwise, you are going to be left behind. We do not want our people to be left behind. The country's moving. The government is going digital. Everybody needs to come along. So thank you so much for your time and for your attention. These are my details. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. Tshepang has already put the links there. Follow us on social media as well. Those are different social media platforms that we have. Do follow us. And then if I can ask you as well to rate us, and completing the survey. The survey is really going to help us to improve this course going forward. So if there are certain areas where you felt maybe we needed to go into a little bit more detail or maybe not covered, please do inform us. And also one of the questions we'll talk to future webinars. So we will be having more coming, also intermediate, but this one I think is important to understand. This was just a foundation. So this is just the basic one, and everything else is going to build on this. We're going to have more. Future, we'll be looking at prompt engineering, we'll be looking at agents. I know we have interest in those areas. So those are coming up. So do follow us so that you do not miss out. But for today, we were just giving you the basics, and we will be sending this to you. So we really appreciate the links are in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing, and now I'm going to the Q&A to see if we have questions. No questions, but you are welcome. So do we have any questions? You are welcome to raise your hand. Yes, Florence, go for it.
Thank you. In an organization, we normally put information on the website, even if it's generated from, let's say, accounting system or payroll system or SharePoint, but there are specific information that we'll put on the website, like the annual report with the, let's say, with the salaries of executive. Yes. So I guess that AI will only access what we put on the website. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you share what we, yes. So I normally hear about cyber security, but I don't really understand them. Are those kind of system protecting other data?
So which system? Say that again.
Cyber security.
Or cyber security.
Cyber, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. So cyber security is also a very layered capability. So think of cyber security as, think of it like physical security. Think of your house. Okay. So when you think of a house, you can have a house that is freestanding. You can have a house that is in an estate. So let's think of a house that is freestanding. Okay, let's start with an estate. So an estate, there's a gate somewhere where the security guards who checks who goes in and out. That's the first layer of security. Then the second layer is when you get to the house, there's a wall. Right? There's the second layer. The third level is the wall has electric fence. Okay. Then once you are in the yard, then there's wall doors. Okay, let's say you have trellis door, then you've got normal doors, and so forth and so forth. So you see, it's like maybe I've talked to 4 or 5 layers, right? Then you could also have a house. Now think of another house. It's not in an estate. It does not have a wall. It does not even have doors. So do you see the difference between the two houses? So cybersecurity protects a company from the outside all the way to the inside. So it goes as far as, if you think of a house, you've got the doors that let you go outside, and then you've got the doors from inside the house. So think of it that you also have, let's say, you even have burglar bars for every room. So which means that every bedroom, when you come out, there's a burglar bar, right? Then when you get inside the room, when there's a bed, there's a burglar bar, you see. That is how far it goes. So it protects. Firstly, you have the internet, because most of organizations, there's internet, because especially now with the use of cloud, from the internet to come in. So there has to be protection at that level. That's normally the firewall.
Oh,
And then you come in. Then there's the network environment, the internal network. So you've got the wide area network, which is your environment as it pertains to the internet. Then you've got the internal, the local area network, which is the internal network. You have to protect them. Then within the network, you've got different applications. Then you have to protect each one of those. Then you've got users like yourself. Each user needs to have their own protection and so forth and so forth. So depending on the security design, you'll find some companies more protected than others because it's also very expensive. It's not cheap. Because for every layer, then you pay. Then you also have multiple products. Some products just does the external perimeter. Some, they only protect applications. Others, they protect actual devices like your laptop. So you also need a protection just for your device, you see. So there's just multiple layers of protection.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. No, thank
But AI should, in theory, should not be able to get in if you've got proper protection. But because there are weakness in those at those levels, then you find that AI, especially those AI propagated cyber attacks, it can still go in. Because at the end of the day, you are as strong as your weakest password, because it can guess them. It will run an algorithm to guess the combination of passwords. And then if, for example, you don't have two-factor authentication, which means you go in twice, like you log in with your password, then it sends you a PIN. If you don't have that, I can tell you almost with certainty, an AI will eventually work out the password and go in.
Okay. But then if you are saying AI will work out to get a password, it's like the human being is instructing it.
No, it isn't. Remember, as I said, already it has a code in it. It knows what to do. So already it's like a soldier that went for training, then is sent on the field. You see, so it already knows what to do. It's coded to say your job is to try and break into systems. It's already trained for that. Then it just goes and does its things. Its thing.
Okay, so OTP number serves as a protection.
Yes,
Like
so
on the
always
example
have
that you gave.
two-factor authentication.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you can't just have username, password. Say a two-factor, then it's gonna say, so every time it will either go to your mail or to give you an SMS or whatever. Like in my case, I also use biometric. So I have that as an extra layer of authentication. So authentication is access, gaining access, verifying that it's you. That's what they mean. So yeah, so you need to have a multiple layer of authentication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Let's see. Oh, wow. Right on the dot. So, and then, okay, and I see Petunia saying informative and how to, especially the, yeah, okay, yeah, how to avoid those risks. So we will be sending this to, you, the pack, and then do follow us, and then for our upcoming sessions. And we look forward to seeing you again. But thank you so much for your time and spending the afternoon with us. So do take care.